The city gleamed under the morning sun, with the towering Leiyu Wenhua headquarters standing tall amongst the skyline. As employees hurriedly walked about, they paused to cheerfully greet their director. A dark-haired man, their leader, waved back, his face betraying no emotion. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Isn't that the famous director Yuan?" "Indeed, he's the shining star here." But no, it's Wu Yu, the head of the anime department. As he passed the throngs of his employees, his icy gaze met theirs. He entered his office, the door shutting behind him. Eyes followed him with admiration. "Such charisma," remarked an employee. Another added. "And so handsome, though so aloof." A newbie dreamily wished to be his girlfriend, only to be told, "You must be new here. He's the enigma of our company." Some even say he's the most formidable presence there, overshadowing even the CEO. Inside his office, Wu Yu made himself comfortable, taking off his jacket and loosening his tie. A secret button was pressed, and shelves lined with video games and anime figurines emerged. 3 computer screens blinked to life. Settling on his couch, joystick in hand, he sighed. "The things I do for work," he chuckled. He was on a mission to conquer his 1000th game challenge, defeating the formidable Demon King. But as he began, an unexpected notification popped up. "An add-on for the game?" "Well, let's dive in," he said, gearing up. Outside, curious employees whispered about the enigmatic director. "Ever wondered what Director Wu does all day?" one asked. "All I know is, I wish he'd come out more," sighed another, clearly smitten. In the glimmering corporate tower of Leiyu Wenhua, Director Wu Yu was the jewel in the crown, overseeing countless significant projects. "He's like the god of our corporate wealth," whispered an employee. Another sighed. "Given his stature, I doubt he has time for romance. Plus, all the eager ladies here are waiting for just a glance from him. Dreaming about him is pure fantasy." Just as the conversations flowed, there was a sudden, thunderous explosion. Panic ensued. Employees, covered in ash and soot, rushed to the destroyed room. Despair was evident in their eyes. "Why did Wu Yu leave us?" wailed a man, kneeling amidst the rubble. A somber memorial photo of Wu Yu was displayed, bearing the words, "In memory, with love, forever missed." Amidst the darkness, Wu Yu was in utter confusion. "Am I dead? Then why am I conscious?" A beam of blue light appeared, revealing a skeleton clutching a sword and shield. To his horror, Wu Yu realized it was his own form. Around him stood other skeletal warriors. Panic surged. "Is this a dream, or a dungeon?" A shimmering crystal drew his attention, reflecting his new skeletal visage. His scream echoed, "What is this nightmare?" Flashes of memory rushed back. The game add-on. The explosion. Is this some alternate world? Why am I not in my own body? He lamented. Desperately, he started banging his head against the crystal, watching his health deplete with each hit. "If it's a dream, let me wake up," he cried. "I've accumulated wealth all my life. Why can't I enjoy it? If fate threw me into a new world, couldn't it at least leave me human?" A screen materialized before him, detailing his stats. Role, Skeleton Soldier, Level 1. Health, 10 units. Mana, 10 units. Magic, 10 units. Strength, 10 units. Defense, 10 units. Dexterity, 10 units. Primary weapon, Weathered Iron Sword. Secondary weapon, Broken Round Shield. He stared at the dismal stats, thinking, perhaps it would have been better to truly be gone. Amid the hum of the game, a sudden rustling catches Wu Yu's attention. Before he can even process the danger, a blade swiftly decapitates him, sending his head rolling. Standing tall is a warrior, his sword dripping with digital blood. Upon Wu Yu's defeat, the warrior beckons other players. "This area's easy, the foes are weak," he declares, referring to Wu Yu's virtual avatar. Skeleton soldiers, which other players easily dismantle, surround the area. In his moment of digital death, Wu Yu reflects on the importance of living in the present, for tomorrow is unpredictable. Wu Yu awakens, feeling disoriented. His surroundings are familiar, yet not. The blue energy core, the skeletal soldiers, the maze-like environment, it all looks like the game, the Devil's Lair, that he was just playing. But could it be? Has he truly been transported into the game world? He observes his skeletal form and realizes with a jolt, he's now an easily defeated monster in this virtual realm. Before he can make sense of his new reality, two real-life players, embodied as female avatars, rush into the room. Wunadayu knows he must lay low and observe, lest he be slain again. As he sneaks around, he contemplates the irony. His ancestors lived with honor. Yet here he is, reduced to a mere pawn in a game. But his musings are interrupted by a sharp pain. A spear pins him to the ground, with a fierce female player standing over him. "Hurry up," she calls to her friend, seemingly dismissing Wu Yu as a minor threat. As the reality of his vulnerable position dawns on him, another player dashes towards them. In her haste, she trips, her weapon clattering away. Wu Yu can't help but laugh. The girl holding him captive, however, doesn't find it amusing. Her piercing gaze meets his, and fear grips him. With a swift movement of her weapon, Wu Yu meets his end once more in this relentless game world. In a desperate plea, Wu Yu thinks of his home and wishes his mother would take him away from this chaotic world. As he runs, the sharp tips of spears and arrows zip past him, with a horde of players shouting and chasing after him. "Just let me be," he screams, trying to explain his resurrection and the pain he feels. But the language barrier between him, a low-level monster, and the players renders his pleas gibberish. An observant girl notices Wu Yu's desperate attempt to communicate, realizing he's not like the other monsters. Just as things seemed bleak, a brigade of armored skeleton warriors on horseback storms in, making a player cry out in fear. High-level sentinels, retreat! Amidst the ensuing chaos, with the cavalry clashing against the players, Wu Yu feels a spark of hope. His eyes filled with newfound determination. They show no mercy, even to the weak, he thinks. Drawing his sword, he declares, "Now, it's my turn." One by one, he fends off the players, striking them with his sword, shield, and sheer willpower. Cornered, two of the female players he remembers from earlier beg for mercy, offering him anything he desires. As Wu Yu ponders their offer, the blonde player suddenly lunges at him with a sword. Though she only manages to rip a piece of his attire, the betrayal infuriates him. "You treacherous viper!" he roars, charging at her. Their struggle is intense, with Wu Yu finally overpowering her and increasing his own strength in the process. However, this victory is short-lived. A sound behind him makes him turn to find an imposing skeleton warrior on horseback, sword raised menacingly. Wu Yu, in sheer terror, raises his hands defensively. "What do you want from me?" he cries out. Amidst the dust and chaos, a skeletal warrior watched intently. Wu Yu, in the midst of the turmoil, beckoned the skeleton, trying to establish a truce. But the skeleton didn't recognize the figure before him. Unrecognized entities were considered threats. Without hesitation, it lunged at Wu Yu. Wu Yu skillfully dodged, narrowly avoiding the skeleton's strike. However, before he could catch his breath, another blow aimed for his head. With a swift move, his head rolled away. In an almost comical fashion, he placed his head back and took a moment to analyze his situation. "Is this because I've come back to life?" he mused, referring to the constant attacks on him. Seizing a sword and shield nearby, Wu Yu braced himself. He wasn't one to be trifled with. The skeleton's blow hit his shield, but Wu Yu managed to deflect it with a force that sent the rider sailing past. He'd just mastered the art of a shield block, a skill he was quite proud of. The skeletal warrior, undeterred, wheeled his horse around. Wu Yu whispered to himself the first rule of monster combat. They always telegraph their moves. As expected, the skeleton raised its sword, signaling an impending strike. Wu Yu saw his opportunity. With agility, he dove beneath the arc of the slashing blade, recalling the second rule of fighting monsters. Always retaliate post-block. With a powerful thrust, he shattered the skeleton warrior, sending the bony remains scattering. Catching his breath, Wu Yu scanned the scene, trying to make sense of the events. He speculated that the game was glitching and hoped for a quick fix soon. Yet, eerily, the skeletal fingers twitched, and the warrior began to reassemble, now with a more menacing visage. Panicking, Wu Yu saw a glint nearby, a helmet. As the skeletal warrior lunged at him, sword aimed for his head, he hastily put on the helmet. It saved him. The blade clanged against the metal, sparing him any harm. Scrambling back, Wu Yu pleaded with the relentless skeleton, who once again raised its sword for another strike. The battle was far from over. A horse bolted forward, scattering a skeleton warrior into pieces. Wu Yu watched, dumbfounded. But when the horse nuzzled his head affectionately, realization dawned upon him. It was the magic of his new helmet. An info panel popped up before him, highlighting its powers. The helmet of the Skeleton Lord had the ability to command low-level, non-intelligent creatures. Wu Yu also noticed that his own strengths had enhanced. He concluded that defeating the maze creatures contributed to his growth. Wu Yu's excitement knew no bounds. With the helmet's power, he felt invincible. Patting the horse, he whispered, "You, my friend, are my fortune." Enamored by the enchanting world he found himself in, Wu Yu felt a surge of ambition. He envisioned himself rising to the status of a demon king by mastering the art of soul transmigration and evolving into a skeleton beast. Standing at a cliff's edge, overlooking the abyss's mystical forest, he roared with determination. "I will be the demon king." With his skeletal horse beneath him and a sword pointing to the heavens, he seemed ready to conquer. Elsewhere in the haunting forest of the abyss, a young boy, Yoon, clad in armor with a sword gripped tightly, stood surrounded by lurking eyes. Trembling, he whispered, "I'm afraid." Sensing an intruder, creatures from the shadows lunged at him. In a stone-laden clearing, a green monster munched on something amidst scattered skeleton armor. Suddenly, an alert was raised. "An outsider approaches." The creature turned to see an army of skeleton soldiers storming in, overwhelming it instantly. Wu Yu, now on horseback, swiftly decapitated the monster. As he rode past, a notification popped up. Level 5 achieved. He marveled at his rapid progression, attributing it to the helmet's prowess. It not only allowed him control over lesser creatures but increased the quantity he could command. With renewed enthusiasm, Wu Yu spurred his horse, exclaiming, "The forest shall be mine." His laughter echoed, but was soon interrupted by an unfamiliar noise. Tilting his head, he pondered, "What's that sound?" A young boy, armored and tears streaming down his face, brandished his sword with trembling hands. Hidden in the nearby foliage, sinister creatures watched him hungrily. Wu Yu, stumbling upon this dire scene, wondered how a human child could be in such peril. With a fierce battle cry, the boy tried to scare off the encroaching monsters, but his bravery was met with their menacing advance. Just as things seemed grim, Wu Yu, filled with resolve, brandished his own blade and sprang into action. With swift and precise strokes, he fended off the creatures, leaving the boy awestruck amidst a cleared battleground. Catching his breath, Wu Yu turned to the boy. "Are you all right?" But as the boy looked up and saw Wu Yu's skeletal visage, terror gripped him. Panicking, he stumbled backward, his sword raised defensively, urging Wu Yu to stay away. Wu Yu, realizing the boy's fear, buried his face in his hands, momentarily forgetting his own appearance. With a gentle voice and reassuring gestures, Wu Yu tried to communicate his intent to help. The boy, still wary, heard a familiar croak from Wu Yu. Tentatively, he asked, "Are you trying to help me?" Relief washed over Wu Yu, glad that the boy seemed to understand. In the midst of their newfound understanding, Wu Yu inquired about the boy's identity and why he was alone. "I'm Uni," the boy said, sniffling. "My father left me here. Said it was some sort of test." Indignant, Wu Yu retorted, "What kind of father would do such a thing?" Uni, looking downcast, admitted he didn't understand his father's motives either, but he longed for home. Wu Yu, though initially reluctant to take on the responsibility, realized he couldn't leave the young boy alone in such a treacherous place. "Come with me," he proposed. I'll help you find your way home." Grateful, Yuni nodded, ready to embark on their shared journey. Under the golden hue of the sun, Wu Yu affectionately called out to his trusted steed, Ziobai. But upon spotting Juni, the horse's eyes widened with sheer terror. Convinced of an impending doom where he would perish and Wu Yu would emerge as the triumphant hero, Ziobai bolted in fear. Wu Yu called out, trying to make sense of Ziobai's sudden erratic behavior. Little did he know, a hero's aura often repels lesser monsters. Time passed, and soon Wu Yu led an impressive legion of skeletons while riding a different horse. This undead army, on his command, sang and marched in perfect formation. At the heart of this macabre parade was a young boy, Yuni, who gazed at Wu Yu with a mix of hope and anxiety, praying the tales of malevolent kidnappers his father told weren't about this man. As Wu Yu halted, dread filled Juni. Were those ominous tales true? Yet Wu Yu seemed preoccupied with a signboard reading, "Adventurers can restore the Tower of the Dead." Engrossed in reading, Wu Yu was startled when he heard Yuni's terrified cry. The boy had latched onto a skeleton, convinced of an impending doom. Realizing they had ventured off track, Wu Yu felt regretful for the misadventure and knew that visiting the nearby town could have offered invaluable insights about this mysterious world. Assuring Juni of his protective role, Wu Yu warned him about potential threats from monsters, guiding him on how to act. Together with the Skeleton Legion, they journeyed on until a remarkable sight stopped them in their tracks. Before them lay a colossal, slumbering skeleton dragon, a beast that promised unparalleled experience points upon defeat. Seizing the moment, Wu Yu commanded his generals, Gu Shengti and Dan Shaju, to strategically encircle the dozing creature. They did, taking cover behind boulders. Yet, as the dragon awoke with a deafening roar, radiating a fierce purple aura, Wu Yu quickly realized they might have bitten off more than they could chew. The powerful roar sent the skeletons flying, and bone spikes charged with the same purple energy shot out from the dragon, targeting his skeletal forces. With the situation escalating, Wu Yu took refuge behind a large rock, contemplating his next move. Purple glowing bone spikes soared, embedding themselves into the ground. Warriors were struck down, impaled by these menacing thorns. Amidst the chaos, Wu Yu remained unscathed, though not for lack of trying on the part of the spikes. Yuni, a young boy in the vicinity, became the target of one such spike. Wu Yu's eyes widened as he yelled a warning. Frozen in terror, Yuni crouched, hands shielding his head. The spike narrowly missed, sending a shockwave of debris flying. Relieved, Wu Yu whispered thanks for Yuni's safety, knowing the dire consequences if the boy had been harmed. With tearful eyes, Yuni confessed his fear and dashed towards Wu Yu for protection. Wu Yu ran to meet him, urging him to stay hidden. But another spike targeted Yuni. The boy fell, anticipating impact. Yet again, luck was on his side. The spike missed by a hair's breadth. Amazed, Wu Yu thought, Yuni must have a guardian angel. Around them, skeletal warriors lay defeated, victims of the deadly thorns. Wu Yu's focus turned to the source, a monstrous dragon, bones clattering, mouth aglow with the same eerie purple. Despite the fallen allies around him, Wu Yu, armed with sword and shield, was undeterred. The battle had only just begun. He reassured Yuni, reminding him of the purpose of their journey. Training. Wu Yu would handle the dragon, Yuni needed to defend himself. With that, Wu Yu charged, leaving a stunned Yuni behind. The boy, watching his guardian face the beast, knew he couldn't just stand by. He remembered his father's teachings about bravery and drew his own sword, ready to help. In a desolate battlefield strewn with spikes and remnants of skeletal warriors, Yuni, sword in hand, maneuvered skillfully. Not too far, Yuni peeked from behind a rock, eyes locked on Wu Yu as he dodged and struck the mighty dragon with his blade. With grace, he managed to fend off the dragon's attacks with a shield. Drawing from his years of gaming knowledge, Wu Yu deduced, sometimes, to defeat an uncontrollable foe, you have to draw some blood. Suddenly, Yuni charged with a loud battle cry, delivering a powerful triple strike that depleted 666 points from the dragon's health. As the dragon wailed in agony, Wu Yu's astonishment grew, not expecting Yuni to be in the thick of battle. However, the battle was far from over. The enraged dragon, focusing its attention on the young boy near its tail, lunged menacingly. Just when it seemed like the end for Yuni, he boldly struck again, dealing another massive blow of 666 health points. In pain and confusion, the dragon recoiled. With adrenaline rushing, Yuni yelled, "I am fearless," and continued his onslaught, chipping away 666 points with each strike and occasionally 233. Stunned, Wu Yu watched in awe. With one last courageous effort, Yuni sliced a piece of the dragon's tail, proclaiming, "I am brave." The wounded dragon, now desperate to escape, made for a nearby cliff. But its injuries proved too great, and it plummeted with outstretched, tattered wings. Yuni stood triumphantly at the cliff's edge, sword raised high. An awestruck Wu Yu remarked, "Your courage and love propelled you." Glancing at his status, he noticed he had leveled up to 7. Looking down, Yuni asked, "Is it over for the dragon?" Wu Yu pondered. The dragon couldn't match Yuni's fierce attacks. Yuni, with sparkling eyes, said, "I felt brave, like the heroes from games and animes. Was it some in-game boost?" Wu Yu stared at him, a hint of fear in his eyes. "You're formidable, Yuni. A force to reckon with." The young boy's excitement waned, replaced by a look of distress. "Are you leaving me, bony uncle?" Tears welled up in his eyes. "Please don't go. I promise I'll be good." Wu Yu chuckled, watching Juni's enthusiastic offer to help fight evildoers. Such spirit in this little one, he thought. Clearing his throat, he evaluated the situation. While Juni might seem innocent, his aura carried a potent power. If Wu Yu could harness that energy properly, the possibilities were endless. As Wu Yu pondered, his laughter broke the silence, leaving Yuni puzzled. Later, amidst the green canopy of the forest, Wu Yu galloped on his skeletal steed while Yuni trotted alongside. "Meeting you must be fate," Wu Yu remarked. "I'll ensure you get home safely." But inwardly, he thought how gullible the young boy was, easily swayed by his words. Reaching a stone marker adorned with a grinning skull, the words "City of the Dead" were inscribed. As Wu Yu delved into the city's security guidelines, Yuni busied himself with a spider, poking it playfully. Among the rules were peculiar ones like no unleashed zombie dogs and no discrimination, save for heroes. Curiosity got the better of Yuni, who asked Wu Yu about discrimination. As Wu Yu contemplated a child-friendly explanation, a green, zombie-like dog rushed by, a bone firmly between its teeth. Mesmerized by the duo, the bony dropped from its mouth and it charged towards them with excitement. As Juni readied himself for a playful catch, Wu Yu watched in disbelief. But the dog's target wasn't Juni. Instead, it clamped onto Wu Yu's leg, prompting an exasperated shout from him about irresponsible pet owners in the city of the dead. Looking past the still attached zombie dog, Wu Yu observed the decrepit state of the city. Crumbling houses and slow-moving zombies filled the streets. Both he and Juni shared a moment of dismay at the sight before them. Shaking off the initial shock, Wu Yu suggested they head to the Tavern of the Living Dead to gather intel. Together, they pushed through the tavern's creaky doors. Inside the dilapidated inn, tables were upturned with empty bottles and leftover dishes scattered everywhere. Behind the bar, a skeletal minotaur snoozed, seemingly unaware of Wu Yu's presence. But what caught Wu Yu's attention was a glowing mirror on the counter, playing what looked like a TV commercial. In a labyrinth world? Wu Yu mused aloud, picking up the mirror and inspecting it. Could this be magic? Turning to Yuni, a young attendant, he inquired about the strange object. Yuni nonchalantly mentioned, "Oh, my dad has a smaller one. He lounges and watches my sister dance on it." Wu Yu's eyebrows shot up, surprised that video entertainment was a thing in this realm too. But his fascination was short-lived as the screen went blank. "Is it broken?" he pondered, just before another ad popped up. This time, it was the King of Magic advising everyone to rest and rejuvenate to fortify the gates. Wu Yu's heart raced. He recognized this king from a game he used to play back in his world. Could there be a link between that game and this place, he thought. Intrigued, he asked the Minotaur bartender, who was leisurely mixing a cocktail, about the King of Magic. The Minotaur, speaking in slow, drawn-out sentences, pointed Wu Yu to a hotline at the king's palace temple, adding that the king was also known as the Demon King. Before Wu Yu stood a peculiar phone adorned with a minotaur's face. Struggling due to his height, Wu Yu tried dialing, realizing that only a giant could efficiently use this device. After several attempts, he managed to connect, greeted by a large microphone. "Aloha," he began. The response was a series of alohas and coughs, followed by a beep signaling the line was busy. Wu Yu sighed, realizing the complexity of the world he had stumbled into. A sudden beep interrupted the silence. Wu Yu demanded, "What's going on?" A voice from a device responded, but its attention was diverted. "Your turn, Bella," it said, looking away from hovering notification panels. Wu Yu's voice echoed from the discarded microphone. "Is anyone even there?" In response, Wu Yu was told with an apologetic tone, "The individual you're trying to reach is preoccupied. Kindly attempt later." In frustration, he hurled the microphone away, startling a nearby pet zombie dog. Meanwhile, in the majestic Demon King's palace, a servant girl informed a reclining figure. "Your Majesty, a petitioner awaits." Disinterestedly, he replied, "In a moment." However, a robed figure carrying a book and staff interjected, warning the Demon King of a prophecy. A hero was destined to invade their labyrinth world again. Caught between a game he was engrossed in and the alarming prophecy, the Demon King half listened. "Bella, victory again," he exclaimed, momentarily distracted. But soon after, his demeanor shifted. With clenched fists, he sought clarification. "Who is this hero?" The cloaked fortune teller elaborated that this hero was predicted to challenge the labyrinth's realm. Panic washed over the Demon King's face. "Not another hero. We've vanquished 999 of them, and still, they keep coming." With determination, he proclaimed that the labyrinth would remain untouched this time, calling for an emergency council of the top labyrinth leaders and demon generals. The fortune teller urged calm, heading towards a flaming gateway guarded on either side. As he departed, the Demon King, eyes glistening with tears, implored Bella, "Help me. I can't face this fate anymore." Sympathetically, Bella responded, "It's the destiny of a Demon King to face heroes." He retorted, "But generation after generation of them. It's relentless." In the many times he had been defeated, 999 to be exact, he had endured pain beyond imagination. Every time he looked at the champions with their shining blades, he was reminded of the agony they brought upon him, the burning, the killing, the theft. Those heroes, with their gleaming smiles, were far from virtuous. They built their joy atop the sorrows of others. One could see a hero, surrounded by overflowing treasure chests, basking in the glow of his wealth. Behind the joy of the hero's marriage to a maiden, lay mountains of gold and a backdrop of defeated demons. These so-called heroes brought nothing but misery to the labyrinth realm. They were the true villains. Wu Yu stood, deep in thought, his boots still the chew toy of a persistent dog. With a heavy sigh, he approached the bar, where a Minotaur bartender was busy concocting a drink. Junie, seated beside him, watched intently. Wu Yu's mind raced. This world, with its eerie resemblance to the RPG game Labyrinth of the Demon World he once played, had a familiar adversary, the Demon King. Wu Yu believed that the Demon King held the key to his return home. Without hesitation, he turned to the Minotaur bartender, demanding to know where he could find the devil. Junie nearly fell off her chair in shock. The Minotaur bartender, pointing to a magazine, showed them the image of a dark-haired queen named Hela, described as the beguiling sovereign of the abyss. Disheartened, Wu Yu noticed the Minotaur's own apprehension regarding Hela. Time ticked away, and Wu Yu delved deeper into the magazine, while Junie enjoyed some crispy meat. The dog, unwavering, still had its teeth firmly clamped onto his boot. Suddenly, Wu Yu grabbed a cocktail and downed it in one go. But as the last drop hit his lips, he felt a sudden pain, realizing he had been poisoned, his health rapidly depleting. He slumped to the floor, reaching out to Uni. With the pieces of information he gathered, it was clear they were in the labyrinth of the demon world, a domain under the rule of the Demon King. A being with an unusually lengthy and peculiar name. In a mystical realm, the Demon Palace towers above all, home to the Demon King, Odas, and his 3 trusted generals. Wu Yu, navigating this world, meticulously maps out the labyrinth of the demon world. This maze comprises 7 distinct layers, each overseen by formidable generals. Beyond the Demon Palace, there's the industrial heartland, the enchanting magic house of Fia, a mythical ring. A city that bends reality, a chilling entertainment district, and at the very base, the haunting kingdom of the living dead of the abyss. In this eerie kingdom, Wu Yu seeks an audience with its ruler, the Grim Reaper Hela, a figure so potent that she could provide him a direct route to the Demon King. In his mind's eye, he pictures Hela as a raven-haired maiden with fiery red eyes. As he navigates the shadowy alleys, Wu Yu ponders about Hela's formidable reputation. A chance interaction with Uni, petting a unique zombie dog, makes him reconsider his strategy. He resolves to harness the aura of a hero to bolster his strength before potentially confronting Hela. Spying an equipment store, he decides it's time for an upgrade. Meanwhile, in the opulent chambers of the Demon Palace, Demon King Odas is engrossed in a moment of vulnerability, shedding tears over literature and lamenting his inadequacies. As he lies amidst piles of books with intriguing titles like Romance of the Demon King and The Hero's Forbidden Love with the Great Demon, the seer interrupts. The demonic generals have arrived for a meeting. As Odas attempts to compose himself, an unexpected interruption occurs. A teddy bear named Pippi, bearing a unique ring, darts around, closely pursued by a winged, blonde-haired girl. In the ensuing chaos, the bear crashes onto the bed, landing squarely on the Demon King. As Odas nurses a surprise injury, the girl sits beside him, her face awash with guilt. The mighty Demon King Odas stood tall. "If all are present, let's begin," he declared. Soon after, the elite generals of the labyrinth of the demon world convened around a grand table in the negotiation hall. Resting his head on clasped hands, Odas began. "Rumors suggest a new generation of heroes emerges. We are here to strategize." His words echoed with an air of gravitas, and all present hung on to his every word. However, a small voice broke the somber mood. A tiny figure atop a massive gorilla interrupted. "Firstly, we need to allocate funds for my floor. It's been ages since the last renovation." It was the magical Bobby Reba, perched on the mighty shoulders of King Kong Dululu, advocating for his dilapidated realm. "Either give us money or perhaps more fairy allies to bewitch these heroes." He eagerly looked towards the Grim Reaper Hela for support. However, she responded with an icy glare, causing Bobby Reba and King Kong Dululu to shrink back in apprehension. Odas tried to soothe the escalating tensions, urging Hela to calm down. She merely smirked. A murmur rose as another general noted King Odas's unusual gloominess. Sensing another dispute bubbling, Bobby Reba confrontationally addressed Cage, the crocodile general. "You, old croc, always have plenty to spare." Cage calmly lit his cigar, responding, "My factory might not be thriving, but even if I was affluent, I wouldn't share with the likes of you." Bobby Reba, agitated, hopped onto the table. "You claim you're broke, yet you churn out endless supplies and gear. Are you plotting something?" he accused. Amidst the growing clamor, a wooden staff struck the floor with a resounding thud. The wise seer, Shenzhen Sao, intervened. "Enough, let's maintain decorum." The room buzzed with anticipation. "Everyone should have a chance to speak," declared the girl general, concern evident as she held Oda's hand, asking, "Are you all right, Your Majesty?" From a shadowed corner, the demon general of Purgatory, Tobias, looked on, a chuckle escaping his lips. "I've always only counted on myself," he mused. "This spectacle is amusing." Clearing his throat, he proposed, Perhaps His Majesty should consider clearing the initial levels of the maze. Magic Bobby Reba and King Kong Dululu stared in disbelief. As they processed his suggestion, a golden-haired figure with wings playfully swung from a golden candelabra, landing gracefully. "Let me handle those brave souls," she laughed, introducing a peculiar toy named Pippi. The mere sight of Pippi sent King Kong Dululu into a fit of fear. As Pippi teasingly stuck its tongue out, Dululu fainted dramatically onto the table. While Magic Bobby Reba tried to make sense of the situation, a voice echoed from a mirror in the room. It was Luna, the living mirror of the moon. Her pink hair shimmered as she greeted, "Welcome to the moon's live broadcast." The High Priest of Shenzhen Sao marveled at the advanced tech she used. Luna's voice grew serious. "We've faced challenges before. Now, more than ever, we must unite for the labyrinth's sake." As FIA nibbled on a cake, she noted something was amiss with Luna. And then, mid-sentence, Luna's transmission faltered, filling the room with static, before the connection was completely severed. The mirror shimmered, then stuttered, its voice declaring a lack of magic. FIA, sensing a disturbance, looked around, concerned. Meanwhile, Luna, clad in a bathrobe, lounged amidst a mountain of snacks, munching on chips. Chatting into a microphone, she sighed. The mirror's acting up again. But then she noticed something amiss. The mirror, due to some glitch, was now broadcasting her, bathrobe, chips, and all, to an official meeting. Panicking, she tried to shield her view, but it was too late. The assembly had already caught a glimpse. Magic Bobby Reba, with an amused grin, commented, "Miss Luna looks adorable in those PJs." But then, a sudden chaotic uproar ensued. Magic Bobby Reba yelled in pain, his magic bottle flying, as Crocodile Cage brandished a smoking pistol. Tobias, slamming the table, demanded an explanation. "What on earth are you doing, Cage?" Magic Bobby Reba, pointing an accusing finger at Cage, threatened. "If I had a physical form, you'd be mincemeat by now." Gujalulu, overwhelmed, confessed his fear. The High Priest of Shenzhen Cell yelled for order. All the while, Demon King Odas, deep in thought, suddenly slapped the table. Rising up with an imposing aura, he silenced the room. The generals waited, but instead of a reprimand, Odas mentioned a stomachache, suggesting they continue without him. As he left, Crocodile Cage remarked on the futility of these meetings. FIA, seeking an escape, whispered to Pippi about a bath they'd take later. Magic Bobby Reba, lamenting the failed session, beckoned to someone in a coffin. "Wolf, wake up." As the lid creaked open, a blond man with canine ears yawned, stretching. Wolf the werewolf energetically hopped out, breaking the coffin in his enthusiasm. "Ah, that was a refreshing nap," he exclaimed, his laughter filling the hall. Magic Bobby Reba watched, puzzled. What's with him? In a twist of events, Wolf not only took someone's coffin but also damaged it. In the grand palace of the Demon King, Odas, with great emotion, kicked open the door to his chambers. Dropping to his knees, he lamented to Bella, "My heart's in pieces. The generals, they don't see me as their king. It's all gone." Bella, compassionately, took his hand. By their side stood the revered High Priest of Shenzhen, Sal, and Aunt Tobias. Finding comfort in Bella's touch, Odas confessed, "I've lost all dignity." But she reassured him, "You rule the labyrinth. All its beings heed your call." With renewed vigor, Odas declared, "You're right. This is my realm. No time for weakness." He informed Bella of his plan to recruit from every nook and cranny of the maze. "Generals, officers, garrison chiefs, all are welcome, irrespective of their origin, to join my side against the brave." Elsewhere, in the desolate west of Dead City, a bald man with an axe sat on a bench. He held aloft a gramophone, calling out, "Exchange old weapons, magical relics, minerals." A distressed ghost approached, revealing his recent brawl with a baseball bat-wielding rogue. Nearby, robbers lay defeated, with a zombie among them having met a grim fate. A young female robber confidently stood, a knife flipping in her hand, atop a zombie elder. Beside the old zombie, a young one wept, "Grandpa." Observing his gramophone's effect, the bald man remarked, "Loud and effective. This dump isn't entirely worthless," and handed it to the female robber. Addressing the elderly zombie, he sternly said, "I told you, if you have something valuable, hand it over." As the desperate zombie pleaded his case, the bald man, losing patience, shoved him away. The younger zombie looked on in horror. As the bald man expressed his disappointment with the town's loot, another robber tore a wanted poster off a nearby board. "They're hunting us even here. This place isn't safe," he declared. The man and the female robber examined the board, contemplating their next move. The haunting echo of a gramophone repeated 3 words: recycling, old weapons, magical items. In the backdrop, a burglar feverishly removed leaflets. Exiting the shadowy alley, a gang departed with their bald leader declaring, "We rule now." Behind them lay a desolate city, with a still zombie, mourned by a young boy. The scene shifted to an anti-war village, amidst a desert. Red symbols adorned the surrounding stones. Uni, a young boy, faced a menacing porcupine-like beast, its axe poised high. Gripping his small sword tightly, Uni retreated, tears streaming down, calling for his uncle's aid. Wu Yu, concealed behind a rock, spotted 3 luminous spikes on the monster's back. Seeing his chance, Wu Yu leapt, snagging one glowing spike. The beast bellowed, eyes wet with pain. But Uni, confused, only watched as Wu Yu sprinted past, holding the spike, declaring triumphantly, "The great porcupine is defeated, where's my applause?" The duo, joined by a loyal zombie dog, were hotly pursued by the now enraged monster. With each step, Uni questioned Wu Yu. "Is this right? My dad said stealing is bad." Annoyed, Wu Yu retorted, "This isn't theft. Look at how many spikes it has." But as the beast drew closer, axe raised, Uni shot back. "He doesn't seem too happy about lending us one." The monster's eyes flared crimson, and with a mighty swing, its axe struck the ground, sending shockwaves. The trio were thrown airborne. As they tried to escape, Wu Yu slammed into a wooden signpost. Dazed, he barely registered Uni's concerned voice. "Are you okay?" The world blurred around Wu Yu as he struggled to comprehend their situation. As Wu Yu looked up, he noticed a sign marked Anti-War Zone. Relief washed over him. This meant no combat could occur here. He spotted a charging porcupine and yelled for Juni to hurry towards him. Wu Yu confidently stood by the sign, knowing the creature couldn't harm him here. True to his prediction, the porcupine halted just short, growling in frustration. Wu Yu silently congratulated himself for understanding the rules of the area. But his confidence soon turned to horror as he saw Juni bravely approach the creature, weapon ready. To make matters worse, a dog on Juni's head began aggravating the porcupine. Enraged, the beast shattered the anti-war zone sign, sending Wu Yu, Juni, and the mischievous dog into a panic. Loudspeakers blared a warning. "Come back forbidden." As they turned to flee, the porcupine leapt at them, weapon raised. "Seems he's finally snapped," Wu Yu yelled. Suddenly, purple lightning bolts fired from the loudspeakers, targeting the aggressor. Wu Yu laughed triumphantly. "Told you this was an anti-war zone, should have listened." Juni, eyes wide in amazement, praised Wu Yu, calling him uncle. Blushing modestly, Wu Yu brushed off the compliment, emphasizing the importance of strategy over brute force. Juni, hanging on to Wu Yu's every word, admitted he'd never even heard the term tactician before. Seeing an opportunity, Wu Yu proposed Juni become his apprentice to learn the art of brave and intelligent combat. Eagerly, Juni accepted, while Wu Yu mused on how the turn of events was just perfect for him. In a futuristic world where monsters threaten humanity, the burden of defense lies on young Uni, mentored by Wu Yu. Together, they venture into the anti-war zone's vast weapon store, a place filled with rows of gleaming arms and armor. A salesgirl greets them, her eyes landing on Wu Yu. She retrieves a weapon, remembering his prior interest in it. In response, Wu Yu places a shimmering, golden porcupine-like needle on the counter. Would this be sufficient for an exchange? He inquires, watching as the needle glows with an indicator reading 1260 GL, having a balance of 250 GL. Their transaction is swift. In return, they receive the sharp sword of Yarik. Both mentor and student stare in awe at the exquisite blade. As Wu Yu lifts it, something unexpected happens. His bones crack audibly, and his hands detach from his arms, still gripping the sword. The entire scene is gruesome, leaving Uni aghast. But then, with a luminous glow, Wu Yu's hands, now encased in robust gloves, reattach and grip the sword's hilt. "It's a tad heavy," he remarks, explaining that the strength-enhancing gloves he purchased were made from materials he had previously collected as an adventurer. Uni, impressed by Wu Yu's resilience and skill, applauds his master's swordsmanship. With a grin, Wu Yu assures Uni he's mastered the art. The salesgirl offers her assistance for future visits. Before leaving, Wu Yu, perplexed by the contrast of the city's dilapidated state and the high-level magical items it harbored, approaches the counter with a burning question. "Why," he asks, leaning in, "does our city, with such magnificent artifacts, look as though it's on the brink of ruin?" In a dimly lit shop, a girl retrieved a mystical orb from behind a counter. "This city," she began with a hint of nostalgia in her eyes, "was once a bustling trade hub." Yuni's eyes sparkled with interest. She elaborated. Travelers and adventurers would often stop by for rest or to continue their journeys. As she narrated, the girl busily arranged a myriad of artifacts in front of Wu Yu and Juni. "The labyrinth elites used to invest heavily in its development," she continued, a trace of bitterness evident. She handed Wu Yu a magazine titled, "Welcome to the Dead City," dated May 9, 1999. The images inside depicted a vibrant, thriving city. Wu Yu, taken aback, whispered, "It was magnificent." The girl, her voice heavy with emotion, added, "But then, funding ceased. Officials vanished for mysterious inspections, and soon, no one oversaw the city's affairs." Juni's eyes danced over the items, captivated by their history. "When order collapses, chaos reigns," the girl remarked. "The power-hungry seized control, living in opulence at the heart of the city." She painted a vivid picture. A ghostly figure surrounded by grandeur, juxtaposed with a destitute zombie scrounging for scraps. The disparity grew. Some sought power in war zones, and adventurers, realizing the city's lack of oversight, preyed upon its residents. The true villains, though? The bandits. The girl, overwhelmed by the weight of the memories, slammed her fists on the table, recalling the moment people discovered the outdated city's laws and began exploiting them. Wu Yu watched, taken aback by her fervor. She turned away briefly, wiping away tears. "We were renowned for our battle gear, magical tools, even our underworld ale," she murmured, her voice breaking. "Now, we barely scrape by." In her distress, she used a piece of Juni's cloak to dab at her eyes. Regaining composure, she apologized for her outburst. Wu Yu, deep in thought, wondered aloud about the city's decline and the apathy from those in the upper labyrinth. Then, an idea sparked. "Those power-hungry elites, surely they've amassed treasures here?" he inquired, hinting at an impending adventure. A girl's eyes widened, clearly caught off guard by the sudden question. One evening, in the heart of the central residential area, cries of, "My treasure," echoed through the streets. A sophisticated zombie, adorned with a monocle, perched on a rooftop, warned the darkness below. "Don't even try to flee, I'll catch you." But then, something strange interrupted his focus. Figures zoomed across the night sky, bags trailing behind them. "That's Wu Yu," the zombie realized. The creatures in tow. They had stolen treasures. Wu Yu glanced back, confirming. "They're taken care of." Caressing his helmet, Wu Yu noted. "This armor might not control the more powerful monsters, but it sure comes in handy with mere mortals." Another night at the Battle Grove, eerie creatures with mystic Taoist talismans on their foreheads lurched forward. One hissed, "This talisman is ancestral. A symbol of freedom. I won't part with it." Riding a skeletal steed, Wu Yu, sword in hand, challenged. Choose wisely, your relic or your life. The monster's escape route? Straight towards Uni, a defender of justice. Sword raised, Uni declared. For justice, I stand unyielding. The next night, in the city's central residential area, shouts about money and rariclé miniatures filled the air. Wu Yu stood beside a treasure chest, handing gold bags to awaiting phantoms. Junie, teary-eyed with joy, generously shared the bounty. Pondering aloud, Wu Yu mused. I'll trade some treasures for gear. The gold. That's for the lesser creatures. From the wealthy, to the needy, that's my way. In a posh part of the town, two elegantly dressed ghostly ladies gossiped. Have you heard of the Golden Raider? So swift, only a blur under lamplights. One confessed. His golden glint terrifies me. Wu Yu, glittering with gold accessories, sword and shining shield in hand, stood confidently. He soon ducked behind a wall, skimming through a newspaper titled City Express. In the heart of the city, a newspaper headline showcased the exploits of the infamous Demon King, Odas. Wu Yu smirked, rather pleased to be making news again. He was close to collecting all the rare treasures he desired. Perusing his checklist, he contemplated the next elusive item to pursue. His thoughts were interrupted by an unusual sight. A group of petite skeletons, cloaked in black raincoats, marching with backpacks. A memory flashed. He'd heard about a mystical fabric imbued with the essence of death. These cloaks seemed to be made of that exact material. Today was his lucky day. Hey there! Wu Yu approached them with a sly grin. Could you tiny folks help your uncle out? The little skeletons quivered in fear, huddling closer. Mama said strangers might mean harm, whispered one. Panic ensued, and they scattered, their shrill screams echoing in the alleyways. In their haste, one dropped a peculiar book titled, A Crash Course of the God of Death. Wu Yu called after them. Wait, I just want to chat. How about some treats? But they had vanished. Nearby, a serene pond dotted with water lilies was home to the elegant black death swans. Two swans, clearly smitten with each other, whispered sweet nothings. My darling, you're radiant today. One crooned. But their romantic moment was disrupted by the noisy pursuit of Wu Yu chasing the frightened little skeletons. Don't look. One swan urged its partner. Let's pretend we see nothing. Yet the ruckus was unavoidable. The skeletons, in their frenzy, darted between the swans, causing quite a commotion. Watching them scamper over the water lilies, Wu Yu exclaimed, You sure are nimble. In a playful twist, Wu Yu leaped into the water, aiming to join the chase. But he soon found himself entangled among the swans. Much to his astonishment, their feathery bodies felt incredibly soft. Amidst the serene backdrop, Wu Yu mistook the graceful swans for statues. One of the swans nudged the other, suggesting they propel Wu Yu forward. And just like that, with a powerful thrust, he was soaring through the air. As he landed in the western district of the city, skeleton children dashed past him, seeking refuge from the bandits that had previously terrorized the city of the dead. Help us, one pleaded, tears streaming. Wait, Wu Yu called, chasing after them. Yet, the bandits' eyes weren't on the children, but on the treasures Wu Yu carried. As he halted, demanding answers, they drew their weapons with sinister grins. A girl with twin daggers gleefully declared, We've struck gold today. As she and her comrades lunged, Wu Yu, with a smirk, unsheathed his blade, ready to defend himself. Gracefully dodging an attack, he retaliated, landing a swift blow to one of the bandits. Is that all you've got? Wu Yu teased. His adversaries hesitated, caught off guard by his prowess. Undeterred, the dagger-wielding girl unleashed a fireball. With deft skill, Wu Yu used his sword and shield to deflect the flames. His eyes blazing with determination, he scoffed at their feeble attempts. You picked the wrong guy to mess with. One by one, they clashed, but Wu Yu's strength was unmatched. His bracelet glowed, signaling the power within, allowing him to parry each attack effortlessly. In a final, decisive move, he sent two adversaries crashing into each other, leaving them sprawled unconscious. The remaining bandit, panicking and realizing the odds, began strategizing an escape, lest he face Wu Yu's wrath. Wu Yu, his sword glinting menacingly, confronted the thug, asking if he was ready to surrender. The thug, gripping his bat tightly, believed that if he could just parry Wu Yu's blow, he'd have an opening to escape. But when steel met wood, the thug was shocked by the sword's weight and power. Wu Yu swiftly kicked the thug, sending him sprawling with a mouth devoid of several teeth. Flashes of past humiliations by heroes flooded Wu Yu's mind. He remembered escaping in disgrace and pondered the ebb and flow of life's challenges. With newfound determination, he beckoned the bald gang leader forward. The man was in shock, seeing his comrades sprawled on the ground. Pulling an axe, electricity sparking from it, he roared about the audacity of Wu Yu's actions. He charged at Wu Yu, who deftly sidestepped the attack, mocking its simplicity. However, Wu Yu's momentary arrogance caused him to stumble over a stray brush, and he crashed onto his back. The gang, seizing the moment, rushed him. As one thug swung a bat at Wu Yu, another launched daggers that narrowly missed their mark. Wu Yu, realizing he was outnumbered, decided on a tactical retreat. As a crossbow bolt whizzed past him, he dashed into a nearby apartment building. Bursting into a room, he woke Uni, his trusted friend. "Time to act," he declared, pulling a groggy Juni from bed. The duo sprinted through the streets, with Wu Yu declaring that the thugs had now incurred his wrath. Soon they were at the heart of the Western District, where the robbers were basking in their loot. As they discussed their spoils, one thug noticed two figures. Wu Yu and Juni, now backed by an army of eerie monsters and skeletal warriors. With a fierce command, Wu Yu unleashed his forces on the unsuspecting robbers. The robbers were in utter disbelief, panicking about the mysterious monsters that suddenly appeared. "Is Wu Yu their leader?" one wondered aloud. As they grappled with the creatures, Uni, wide-eyed, questioned Wu Yu. "Who are these guys, Wu Yu? Are they the bad guys?" Wu Yu gave a determined nod. "Today, Uni, you'll learn that not everyone means well." And with that, he launched into the fray. The robbers' leader tried to fend off the monsters, realizing they were more formidable than they appeared. "We're outmatched," one groaned. Another spotted Uni and sinisterly suggested, "Let's take the kid." Uni, tears forming in his eyes, stood his ground, asking the thug to back off. Wu Yu watched intently, noting the robber's poor choice. Just as the thug closed in, Uni unleashed a powerful attack, draining the robber of his strength. Soon, the defeated robbers sat tied up, surrounded by the menacing monsters and a triumphant Wu Yu. Beside him stood a brave Uni. "Who are you and why are you here?" Wu Yu demanded. One robber spat defiantly. "You're a monster, we won't say a word." Unfazed, Wu Yu signaled for Daoying to fetch a special potion. Daoying, carrying a pink concoction, faced a jibe from a robber about his small stature. In an instant, Daoying grew massive, his muscles bulging, and he forced the mocking robber to drink the mysterious liquid. The robber slumped, unconscious. The remaining robbers were petrified. As Daoying returned to his regular size, Wu Yu pointed at the unconscious robber, urging the others to spill the beans. One spoke up, introducing herself as Qin Mao and her comrades as Songshi and Bo. Wu Yu interrupted, demanding their real identities, not code names. Bo, overwhelmed, banged his head in submission, pleading to Wu Yu for mercy. In a twist that Wu Yu hadn't anticipated, the so-called robbers weren't even human. "We were once adventurers, with dreams of conquering the labyrinth," one of them, a phantom, reminisced about days they raced against the sunset. Their leader had ambitions of being the king of all adventurers. But destiny had a crueler plan. During one of their expeditions, a monstrous creature with long, tentacle-like appendages ambushed them. Despite their many battles, this monster proved insurmountable. It claimed their lives. When they next awoke, they were no longer among the living but trapped as spirits within the maze. Without a way out and rejected by fellow adventurers and local spirits, they resorted to thievery. Even the Ghost Valley turned us away, said we lacked malice, a female spirit shared, her voice quivering with sorrow. Wu Yu felt a pang of empathy and regret. Another spirit, Yuni, her eyes glistening with tears, listened intently. When Wu Yu inquired about their next move, the consensus was clear. No more terrorizing the innocents. Suddenly, a bright spirit named Shiki ascended, attributing his liberation to Yuni. It seemed Yuni's blade wasn't ordinary. It held the power to free trapped spirits. As Wu Yu contemplated, he realized Yuni had unknowingly pierced Shiki's soul, granting him release. Seeing Shiki's joy, the other spirits yearned for the same freedom. Wu Yu, after some contemplation, voiced the harsh truth. It might seem brutal, but Yuni can set you free. With determination, Yuni gripped his sword, ready for his noble mission. As Yuni worked, Wu Yu couldn't resist exploring the treasures left behind by the spirits. He grinned as he pocketed some precious beads. A fair reward, he mused. With beads in hand, Wu Yu looked deeply into them, then turned to Yuni. They've served their purpose. Now, it's time for rest. As night blanketed the city, a radiant blue glow signaled the approach of a group of monsters, led by a rider atop a luminous horse. Search everywhere, the commander ordered. We must retrieve the king's missing pendant. As dawn painted the city, Wu Yu stretched, soaking in the sunlight. What a splendid day. Yuni, still half asleep, inquired. What's on the agenda today? But their plans were interrupted by the distant rumble of hooves. Dust clouds heralded the approach of the very same army that had been outside the city the night before. Wu Yu, taken aback, exclaimed. Where did they come from? As soldiers made a ruckus, knocking monsters aside and shattering windows, Wu Yu noted, they seem pretty riled up. Yuni, pulling Wu Yu closer, pointed out. They're harming the innocent and destroying property. They're up to no good. But things took a sudden turn when the commander's gaze settled on Wu Yu. His shadow ominously covered Wu Yu, and there, resting on Wu Yu's chest, was the very pendant the army had been frantically searching for. The commander's eyes gleamed with recognition. The lost relic of our king.